This podcast is brought to you by Hoare Chartered Accountants. Hoare Chartered Accountants are based in Galway City and are a leading provider of audit, accountancy and taxation services. For more information, visit hoarecharteredaccountants.ie. Now you're welcome along to the Maroon and White pod. So I'm joined by Gerry Kearney this evening to look back on the Senior Hurling Championship quarterfinals, the relegation final, the Senior B semi-finals and the intermediate quarterfinals as well. So we know in the Senior Hurling Championship we're going to have Thomas's versus Craughwell and Loughrea and Turloughmore in the other semi-final. Both of those games going to be a double header on Saturday week in Pearse Stadium. But first off, Gerry, plenty of drama we had over the weekend. You look at the first game, going to extra time, Thomas's getting a goal late on, Loughrea's comeback, Turlough getting 5 goals, and a lot of those goals late on. There was plenty of drama this weekend.
Absolutely, Paul. Yeah, great drama. I think it was a great weekend for Athenry. Great to see, like the pitch in Athenry held up remarkably well over the 2 days. The groundsmen there and the county board deserve huge credit. And there was great crowds in Athenry as well. And it was just, I think all the games, all the way down to the very end, you couldn't take your eyes off the play because like there was late goals, there was teams that you expected to play better just weren't performing or just didn't work for them, and then they turned it around. So you have to give the management teams and the players of all those teams and even the losing teams, like it was heartbreaking. Say, I'm just saying Tommy Larkins there at the last minute, but you have to give huge credit to St. Thomas's who just kept plugging on till the very end. Oranmore came into the game on the crest of a wave after their under 20s, you know what I mean, winning the thing, and Turlough just got them at the end. And maybe was that just the experience of Turloughmore and they got maybe a lucky break with a goal. But listen, you need these lucky breaks if you're going to go on and win a cup. Do you know what I mean? So they got over the line. Turloughmore won by 10 points. I think if you ask anyone at the game, it wasn't a 10-point game, to be fair to Oranmore. So they'll leave with a few regrets. I think Craughwell kept going and kept plugging on right to the very end, and Sarsfields for the second year in a row lose a quarterfinal. So that's heartbreaking for them. And then like the last game, I suppose you had the big scores in the championship so far, 15-71 from Clarinbridge, and Loughrea having the breeze, down 5 points at half time. Everyone was wondering what was going to happen in that game. And then it was just you couldn't take your eyes off it. Very well managed by Liam Gordon, I have to say as well. I think he probably had a harder time reffing that game than the Eden All-Ireland final between Tip and Cork. And it was just that it wasn't anything. There was nothing, no real dirty stuff off the ball. It was just a sorting out period, or as I saw it, coming together, and there was just lads marking their territory more than anything. But once it settled down to the hurling, then it settled down to hurling, and then you had a few players that probably hadn't played well for Loughrea really stood up when they needed them. And I suppose that's the mark of county champions, isn't it? They found a way, and no more than Thomas's, who know how to do it as well. They didn't give up. Like it was just great. It was great weekend for hurling, I have to say.
If we look at Loughrea and Clarinbridge first, given it was the most recent game there on Sunday evening in Kenny Park, Clarinbridge looked in control, and some would even say they were cruising in the first half, considering playing against the breeze in a really strong position. And Loughrea come back, but with that Craughwell result, not that people were writing off Loughrea, but I think definitely Loughrea were probably gone back in people's favourites to win the championship. But the spirit they showed, and particularly Tiernan Killeen, he just grabbed that game by the scruff of the neck, and even some of the scores, particularly from play, he landed in that second half to get Loughrea back into the game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as well, Paul, for me, the main thing with Loughrea the weekend is Loughrea had their strongest team for the first time in the championship available. So they had everyone they wanted really available that they had in Ireland. They had everyone. The only one they were missing was Shane
O'Brien.
Shane O'Brien, sorry. Shane O'Brien was the only guy they were missing. So They had everyone. They had Paul Hooban back at corner back. Morgan was back at centre back. You know, up front then you had Anthony Burns reinstated after his suspension. Darren Shaughnessy was back at 14 and Martin McManus was in the full forward line. So they had everyone for me. And I suppose a few of them hadn't gone as well as they'd have expected by their own standards. And Tiernan is probably one of those that would probably say that as well. He drew through the games, he'd be maybe stuttering through the games and some of the games and never really hit the heights and the standard he set. But I think on Sunday in the second half to come out and score 10 points in the second half out of 12. You know, he scored 12 points over the hour. He scored 10 in the second half, 6 from play, 6 from frees. I think he really dictated the game. And I suppose he showed a hunger in that second half that probably typified the approach by Loughrea in the second half. They were facing into a breeze. They were down 5 points. This was the County Cup gone in 30 minutes if something didn't happen. So you have to give whatever was said in that dressing room at half time, whatever the management did, whatever the players did, and if it was a combination of both, you have to say they came out in the second half, all guns blazing, with the intention of playing hurling, going at it. Probably their sideline mightn't have agreed with a few frees given against them, but that just shows the passion that was in that game on both sidelines as well.
Particularly to dig it out, even in deep into that second half, the character they showed, because even 6 or 7 down, deep into that second half, it wasn't as just, I suppose, Clarinbridge's lead did carry in, particularly into that second half as well.
Yeah, it did. And I suppose the thing about it is, and I suppose it's always people will say when you're 6 or 7 down, God, you need goals, you need goals, you need a load of goals to come back in. But I think Loughrea kind of showed that, right, fair enough, they did get a goal from Anthony Burns. But I think they showed before Anthony Burns' goals, if you keep chipping away at a score, irrespective if it's into the breeze or you're with the breeze. If you keep the scoreboard ticking over, that's really, really important because that gives your squad and gives your players that little bit of confidence. And the changes they made at half time, Loughrea might have gone a little bit unnoticed, but I thought Vince Morgan brought a little bit of spark into that full forward line. He just gave Clarinbridge full back line a little bit more to think about. And like Anthony Burns last year was coming up with crucial goals. And when they wanted him again, he came up and delivered. And like the belt he gave that ball, there was no one stopping it. In fairness, Chris, it was gone past him before I'd say he even seen it. So they just got the scores, and then like the lads at the back tied it down. For me, Johnny Cohn played really well from probably 15 minutes onwards. Once they tied down Keen Salmon to a certain degree. Vin and Shane Morgan at 6 played really well. I found Cullen Killeen, especially in the second half, for me, kind of boss midfield a little bit. He really took over. I remember at one stage a ball came and he went to pick it and it went straight up in the air. And there was 2 Clarinbridge lads around him and he put his hand up and there was no Clarinbridge lad taking that ball off him. So there was a real hunger there. And then when you go into the forwards you have, and they weren't afraid to make the changes. You know, Jamie Ryan was on, he scored a point, but they needed to change it. And in fairness, the management, they brought on Neil Keary, and he just gave them a little bit of energy coming through. So they had Sean Sweeney was warming up for a while, he didn't come on. But they trusted the lads on the pitch and they got the scores at the vital times. And the one thing with county champions, and you'll see this in every county, if you're a team that have won a cup, it gives you a certain amount of belief, and it's built up in the memory bank. And when it comes down to the last 5 or 10 minutes, if that's in your memory bank and you've won it, Loughrea coming up the last few years hadn't won a county cup. Now they have that in their memory bank. You think of the Portumnas, you think of the great Sarsfields teams, you think of the great Portumna teams and the great Athenry teams. They kept going till the end and they normally found a way. And that's what Loughrea are doing now. I know they had a bad day against Craughwell, but to me, they didn't have their full squad out. They did the last day. They kept going and they found a way. So I think the trait is there. They know what they have to do to win games. And I felt with 5 minutes to go, even with Loughrea a point or two down, I felt that game was there for the taking for them because that just winning last year breeds confidence in the players. And you could nearly see it. They were like a float every time they were attacking. They nearly felt they could score. And like when Tiernan was on the ball, Tiernan was super confident. When he was getting it, he was going left and right. And there was only one thing on his mind was either to get, so 6 points from play for me is massive. for coming into the game where maybe he'll feel himself, his own standards, he wasn't hitting the heights. But to score 6 points from playing a county quarter final, I think, and your team 5 down at half time, shows serious intent.
They're already showing, like last year, obviously relief getting over the line, but
Yeah,
obviously the key now is to back it up, and it's a different sort of hunger, as you mentioned there. But for this Loughrea group, they've been thereabouts. They've been a consistent team over the last few years, but there obviously is a huge motivation in this Loughrea team to go now and back this county title up. Because I know they won't think of it, but if you take it back to last year, that All Ireland semi final,
yeah,
Nafina, it was there. It was there for them.
it was there for them. And like, just look at the reaction from the sideline when the final whistle went. Like the reaction was just pure elation. You know what I mean? They
Even the
probably
players,
realized,
like the fist
even the
pumps.
players.
Yeah.
Yeah. So listen, they will have realized we didn't play to our potential, but we kept fighting. We got over the line. And as I was leaving Kinney Park, I looked out on the pitch and they were in a circle. And I'd say the management were saying there, lads, we know we weren't at our best today. We played as well as we were allowed, but we kept going, and we got the result. You're county champions for a reason. We'll move on out the next day, and they didn't know the draw at that stage. But I'd say in that circle, you had the leaders like Johnny Cohen, Shane Morgan, the captain Ian Hanrahan, even Tiernan, these lads saying to them, listen, we've done the job now, we've done the business. We lost a group game, but we're in a county semi-final now. They're 2 steps away from retaining the county cup. 2 steps away. There must be more huge motivation within that group. They have a super management team. They know what they need to do. And I've no doubt the next 2 weeks, I'd say them lads bounced into training, well, to a Sunday. I'd say they're probably training tonight. I'd say they'll be bouncing into Loughrea or wherever they're training, or maybe they're training under lights. They'll bounce into training today. And don't get me wrong, they'll fully believe now that they're 2 steps away from getting Tom Canlon for the second year in a row.
If we take it to Clarinbridge, because there's no point in saying otherwise, form
Yeah,
team of the championship, and
absolutely.
I think before the quarter final, you could openly say that they were the best team with their performances throughout the championship. A question that came in from a listener: do you think they started to believe their own hype? And obviously, it's easy to say that now because they're knocked out and
Yeah.
everything. But like Cambridge were in a really strong position, and unfortunately, the tide turned against them in that second half. Where did it go from here in one sense? Because David Ford has put so much work into this team over the last 3 or 4 years. He's really built a youthful Clarinbridge team, you could say, like outside of Keane Salmon, Evan Island, the rest, it's still a pretty young team.
Yeah.
They'll be disappointed, but where do you feel they go from here now?
Like, if you look at the performance of Clarenbridge in the first half, right? What I was really impressed with Clarenbridge is last year people would have said that Loughrea physically kind of manoeuvred Clarenbridge, and they, in the semi-final especially, the group game not so much, but in the semi-final they'll have said, listen, they out-muscled them, they out-fought them, and all that. But I have to say, in the first half, the last day when it was I would say the bedding in period and the sorting out period, Clarenbridge stood up to Loughrea. And they played really, really well, got good scores, were ahead at half time, did what they had to do, playing into the breeze, playing a nice brand of hurling, hitting it to Keen Salmon, who for me was creating an awful lot of problems early on for that, and he kind of moved over a little bit on Paul Hooban for a while. Johnny Cohen got to grips with him as the game went on. There's no doubt about it. Johnny tied him down. I think that was a key factor in the game. Because Keen Salmon for me is, I seen him against Turloughmore earlier on the year. He was going between 10 and 14, and he was causing all sorts of bother. He can get the ball either into his hand from a puck out, or he knocks it to ground, and he's very quick. He might be deceptive, but he's very quick. In fairness to David, he's probably transformed that group. He has a good group of players coming through, but he's had to go, and he's been building steadily. And like the first half, at half time, if you were in that Clarenbridge dressing room, you're 5 points up, you have the breeze to come, you're in a really good place. This crack of, did they believe their own hype? It's very, like, that's an easy statement to make. I know, but like, there's a certain thing coming in that if you've scored 15 goals, 71 points, on average 523 in each game in your group, right? Does that seep in? I'm not sure. I can't answer it. I'm not in that Clarinbridge dressing room. I don't think David Ford would in any way let that sort of nonsense seep into them players. Like, he's a very experienced manager. He's brought these players through. He's developing a really good group. I think some of the players are missing. Keane Donoghue for me was a bit of a loss for them, because when midfield maybe wasn't going as well, he didn't have Keane to go in there. Keane played really well in midfield last year for Clarinbridge, and you might have a really good group of players, but sometimes one or two additionals in the squad, you need them. So for me, Keane Donoghue was really good. I think overall, TJ Brennan was good. Where do they go from here? Like, if you think back last year, right? Turloughmore were in a similar position last year. They blitzed the group. And when they came up against Thomas's turned them over. And is it a thing that if you go really well through the group, there's always the thing of, in your mind, the player's mind, it mightn't be the management, we've scored all these goals, all these points. When it comes then down to a battle, can they raise it in the battle? So if you take it now, Turloughmore have been hardened, have come through, they're in a county semi-final. Loughrea the same way, they've had a defeat, they've had a setback, they're in a county semi-final. But I think it's a bit of an injustice to Clarinbridge to say, listen, they bleed their own height. I don't think so. They have really good players right across the board. TJ Brennan, for me, has been outstanding all year for club and county. And again, the last day, he took the fight, um, and, some of them probably will look back in their performances and say, did I play as well in the second half as I did in the first half? They'll look in the mirror and say probably not, because I think they went a bit quiet. If you look at it, Evan carried the fight. Hugely impressed with Evan. He scored 2 points from play, 8 from frees. Aaron got the 2 goals. Didn't get any points out of it. Loughrea locked him down to a certain thing, but I didn't feel he was as busy in the second half. I did, and funny enough, my observation on the game was both teams that had the breeze, they stopped letting the ball into the full forward line in both instances. I can only remember in the first half, really, for me, the one time that Loughrea really hit McManus and Anthony Burns. McManus had a one-on-one, and Chris Canlon pulled off a super
Mm.
save, a high hurl, blocked it. Absolutely outstanding save, knocked it out for a 65. That could have made it a 2-point game at half time. Instead, it was a 5-point game. Second half, then, Clarinbridge. Now, maybe this was a lot down to maybe Loughrea's pressure, but they definitely weren't getting the ball into Keane Salmon. And Aaron Nyland needs Keane Salmon to be knocking ball for him to be thriving as well. So I felt that both halves, the teams that had the breeze didn't use it or maximize it to their benefit, which I suppose when they look back at will be disappointing for Clarinbridge fans. And no doubt they have standard, and no doubt today those players are hurting. But and listen, Clarinbridge next year, you're starting off talking about Clarinbridge for the championship. You're still talking about Clarinbridge being in the top 4, top 6 next year, because they're only going to get stronger. They have great young talent coming through. They're only going to get stronger. And their average age across that squad, if you look down at it, they're probably one of the up and coming teams. So I can see Clarinbridge, and I've said this before to Clarinbridge, I can see them winning a county cup within three years or so. Not this time. And I think the last time I was on with you, you had asked me, did I think they were favourites for the county cup? And I think I said that day, I didn't think they were favourites now. I could see them winning it in the future, but just not now. And I think the weekend's performance probably shows that was probably the right thinking at that time.
Yeah, I think as well for them, even if you look at Turlough, they've had their setbacks of,
Yeah,
like, even last year to get back to the final, even Loughrea before they got over the line with Tommy Kelly and this crew, they've had their
yeah.
setbacks. There are all these teams that have had their various setbacks, but some of these clubs have just decided to stick with the management, and rightly so, because even as we mentioned there, they've done huge work, and it's it's the sort of setbacks that you're going to come up against in the nature of the Galway Championship as well.
I suppose I'd put it like this to you, Paul. Like, Clarenbridge lost this year, but I'd say in losing, when they reviewed this year, their review was an awful lot more positive than it was last year. And
Yeah,
even their performance in the semi-final. At the end of the day, Paul, they've lost to the county champions.
yeah,
It's not like they've lost to a team in the group that they were expected to hammer or expected to go. Fair enough, they were. Um, they did shoot the lights out in different games, and the teams that were playing, they'll probably be disappointed with their performance. But they did what they had to do in the group. So you have to give them kudos for that. 15 goals and 71 points. You can't take that away from them. And when the championship
It's
is over this year, it's phenomenal. And,
yeah,
that shows you the strength they have and the firepower they have. Their key now is when it comes to knockout hurling next year, how do they go one step forward further? You know what I mean? So it's the step further they need to go. No doubt they weren't in a they were in a county finals not so long ago. So it's not beyond the bounds of possibility they won't be there next year or the year after. I think they have the players. I absolutely do believe they have the players. And it's just a matter of getting it right. But every player you've injured, like Mikey Daly was injured this year. Mikey Daly's been one of their most consistent players and has been a good leader on that half forward line. Mikey could have made a difference the last day. We'll never know now. Mikey Daly and Keane Donoghue could have made a huge difference. So when people look at Clarinbridge and give out about their performance and give out about the thing, you have to take it's the pieces all together that make the perfect thing to the final. As you said yourself, Tommy Kelly was for years scratching how Loughrea weren't getting over. They got over the line last year. They just have to bank this hurt now seriously in the memory bank. And then next year when they hit the championship, if if I had any advice with them, they'd nearly be better off just getting through the group stages and really powering up for championship. And that's easier said than done. But that's if you look at the teams now that are in the quarterfinals or in the semi-finals, they've probably been consistent and played in tight games. That's no, you know, they've been played in tight games, they've won tight battles, and now they're in semi-finals. So I think there's a bit of a lesson there as well on that. But to be fair to Clarenbridge, I think their time will come. It's just a matter of when, not if.
yeah. It's the one thing I think Loughrea have probably they've had the edge over Clarinbridge in championship when it came to the last few years, beating them twice last year,
Yeah.
beating them again
This
the
is
two.
4 times in a row now they've bet
Yeah,
them in championship in the last 3 years. So like
yeah,
that too, you can't come out in the second half, Larray. I'm sure they were told at halftime, they were reminded these lads haven't beaten us in the last 2 years. So
yeah.
like little things can trigger a performance. Little things. You paint pictures in lads' heads, they going out that dressing room. They were still county champions. They're still county champions. They were still going out that dressing room county champions because they had 30 minutes to play. And they obviously believed that they wanted to be county champions still at 60 minutes. And that's what happened. And that's the bottom line. And just Bridge didn't have an answer to it. And that's just unfortunate for them. They had some outstanding performers on the day. I think, though, if you asked a lot of them, a lot of them probably underperformed if you compare to their group performances. So if you compare to their group performances, they've probably underperformed. And that just is a pity that it happened on probably one of the days that they really needed everyone to be firing on all cylinders. And I would always say if you can get 10 or 11 of your 15 firing, you have a great chance. And I think that on the day, Loughrea were just more consistent, and consistency in the end just won out. And that's the unfortunate thing.
If we look at Loughrea's opponents in the semi-final, it's going to be Turloughmore. As we mentioned, they scored 5-16 in the end and came out on top against Oranmore Mary.
Yeah.
Are you starting to get excited as a Turloughmore supporter?
Listen, I think Turloughmore won by 10 points, but I don't think there's anyone in Turloughmore or even in Oranmore, to be fair. I was talking to a staunch Oranmore man on Sunday that thought that was a 10-point victory. So like I suppose we need to get perspective in relation to what it was. Did Turloughmore play well on the day? I would say the first half, Killian Whelan's goal dragged us back into the game, if I'm being honest with you, because it was all Oranmore at that stage and Killian's goal was crucial. It was really crucial. It dragged us back in when we needed it at a really crucial time. And we got, I suppose, a goal then in the second half to start the first of four, which was a free that dropped in, was dropped out the hand and went to the net. Lucky break. You need these lucky breaks. If you're going to win a county cup, you're going to need a lucky break. After that, then I suppose the floodgates open. What I would say is that what I'm liking about Turloughmore this year is they had 10 different scores on Saturday. Over the championship, they've had different scores. So if you're an opposition management team, you're wondering who do you lock down? And then you have to say you have a load of scores. So I think Turloughmore are happy they're in a semi final. I don't know what the Turloughmore management are thinking, but I'm sure they're thinking, we're there. We didn't, after round one, they would have snapped your hand off to be in a semi final. They'll know they'll have a lot of work to do, but they'll also know that they have the men within that dressing room that can get them over the line the next day. And I'm sure they'll be busy preparing these weeks for it. But everyone is in Turloughmore is under no illusions. They're going up against the county champions. And at the end of the day, that means a lot. Can Turloughmore go into Pearse Stadium under lights and beat Loughrea? I think they can. But again, they're playing the county champions. And it depends how Turloughmore play. If they play like they played in the first half, Loughrea will turn them over. There's no doubts at all in my mind. Loughrea will turn them over. But in the second half, they were really impressive. Got the scores when they needed, and I think a few lads stood out. And Barry Callan with 2-1, he's playing really well at the moment. For them, Dara Whelan in midfield, 1-1 from play. Jamie Holland is chipping in. Connor Welch is chipping in. Sean Loftus, Killian Treers in the half back line, playing well. Sean O'Hanlon scored 2 points from play. Sean's a bit of a confidence player, but if he gets his confidence, and I've seen Sean playing in Pearse Stadium, and is a really good player, and if he can get on top of his game, and I think for Turloughmore to deliver a cup, they'll need Sean O'Hanlon on the top of his game, and I hope that he gets that a performance in the semi final. It's intriguing. Really looking forward to it under lights, and as a Turloughmore man, I'll be going in there more than hope than with super confidence. But if we were to win, I'd be delighted, and I hope they do win. I'd wish them the best of luck. But in my head, they're going in against the county champions. And if you go with the bookies at the moment, they're 4-1. So they're already written off. You have Thomas's and Loughrea 11-8, and you have Turlough at 4-1, and you have Craughwell at 9-1. So like the bookies are not giving Turlough much chance. But listen, if Turlough get everything in order on the day and go at it, it'll be a serious battle, and it's a battle that I'm really, really looking forward to.
In an overall context, Jerry, how crucial have the two Whelans and Tom Quirk been this year? Because it seems nearly in every game they've been the three consistent performers throughout every game they've played this year.
Yeah, no, they're very, very consistent, and even days they don't score, and it's not often that they don't score something. They're always getting on the ball, and they're always busy, and that's the word I'd use about the three of them. They're always very busy. They're hard to take down. If I take Tom Quirk, Tom will start in midfield, but you could find him in the full forward line. You could find him in the full back line. I'd say if you're marking him, I'd say he's a nightmare because he's such a bundle of energy, and he's a great leader for that team because he doesn't ask the players to do anything he wouldn't do himself, and he drives that squad, and they go with it. His energy. And Dara Whelan, great to see Dara back. In fairness to Dara, because he's a dual player and he plays midfield. He's in the engine room. The last day, he for me, he gave his best performance because he was really energetic, and he was energetic for the full 60 minutes. It's probably no coincidence the football is finished for him for this year now. So he's able to concentrate on the hurling, and he's able to get that break in between. I don't think people realize sometimes dual players playing for clubs that they don't get a break. They're playing football one week, the next they're in recovery, then they're up for a training session to get ready for hurling the following week. That's awful hard on amateur players, and getting their bodies right, and mentally as well. And it's the mental tiredness. But I think the last day you've seen kind of what Dara can deliver. But I'd say Dara himself would probably say there's probably a bit more in the locker in him. There's a bit more in Tom. There's a bit more in Killian, and like everyone else. But they are the heartbeat of the team, and it's great to see.
You were obviously involved, Jerry, a few years ago. You turned Loughrea over in that semi-final, and then unfortunately came up short against Thomas's in the county final that year. For these Turloughmore players, as you mentioned, obviously going to go in with no fear, and I think for Turloughmore to see Sean Lennon back on the pitch as well at the weekend is obviously just a massive, massive lift for that group. Do you think it's weighing heavily on these players that they haven't got over the line yet? Obviously, they're desperate. They've come so close. Like they're obviously in the semi final, and Turlough will probably believe within their group that they're good enough out of any of these four teams to win a county title this year.
Yeah. Like Paul, I had the pleasure of being involved in 2 years with this group of players, and I can tell you categorically, they leave no stone unturned year on year to try and win Tom Canlon. And it'd be my greatest hope that they can turn Tom Cannon over this year. If it doesn't happen, they'll go on to next year. But I'll tell you, I've never seen a more dedicated bunch of players. They really give everything for the cause. There's nothing that they don't do to get over the line. And just some days you come up short. And unfortunately, that has happened to them. But if you look at it, it's happened to them at quarterfinals, semi-finals, and final stages. And, they have been consistent. The one thing about this group is they have been consistent. Even the year that they were beaten by Loughrea in the quarter final. If you remember, they turned over St. Thomas's by 12 points up in Athenry. So the performance is there within this group, and they just need to get it. And this is the collective, the management and the players just need to get on sync for 2 more rounds to deliver what would absolutely send the parish wild. It would just it'd be just brilliant. You can't, like, I would. Johnny Cohen was involved this year for, say, Celtic Challenge with Galway with us, and like, even listening to him, what it did for Loughrea and for the club and all that. Like, for Turloughmore, it would be since 1985. I remember myself as a supporter. I was behind the goal. I was willing every opposition goalie would drop the ball when a high ball went in from Turlough in 85. That was where I went for every game, roaring at the opposition goalie to make sure he dropped it. That was just, and the scenes, I still have the memories of the homecoming of that. I still remember where we went that night over to Turlough, the Cup, Frank Burke, everything around that, them coming to the school. That's the last time they did it, 1985. There's no doubt that's too long for a club like Turloughmore. But there's no one from the committee to the players to even the underage trying to bring these players through, and the coaches. There's no one trying to do it not to work that Turloughmore are not in the best position. I can tell you, and I know sometimes say, and I've heard the term that Turlough are chokers and they're this and that. They really don't know what they're talking about when they're talking about players like that. And I think it's a bit of an injustice because they go out to represent their club. This weekend, to have Sean and Anne back was massive. And I'm just hoping that's a spark for them. Everyone in the club, not even within Turloughmore, Paul. I think it's fair to say within the county, when he came
Yeah.
on, he got a round of applause in Kinney Park. Not everyone gets that. I'd say within Ireland, when people have heard it, and friends that went to college with him, and lads that played with him in Galway or played in county, were delighted to see him back on the pitch. Sean is a huge leader within our club. Never mind on the pitch. When he couldn't play for the rounds, he was in training. He was driving lads. He was turning up. Little things like that make a difference. Is that going to be the difference this year? Get it over the line. They have 2 steps to go. I sincerely hope so, Paul. I'd love if the cup came this side of the county again. I think it's up the east side of the county far too long, and I'd love it to come back down the north side of the county again. And I think, I don't think anyone would begrudge Turlough. You'll have people out there that'll always begrudge certain clubs. I don't think in the long run, if they were to win Tom Cannon this year, people would do it. And I just wish them the best of luck for the semi-final in their preparations. And I hope to be there to see them win a semi-final. And I definitely hope that if they reach a final, I'd be there to see them win Tom Cannon. And that's what every man, woman, and child in Turloughmore wants. And we just wish them the best of luck. As all other semi-finalists, we just want them all to perform. But obviously, with my black and white hat on, I'd love to see Turlough get over the line. But they have a huge, huge, huge task ahead of them. And don't be under any illusions. They won't be going in there with their eyes closed. And fair enough, they might have beaten Loughrea 3 years ago in a semi-final, Paul. But I can tell you, my heart on the sideline that day, when it was down with a few minutes to go, Loughrea put in a serious effort, and a bit of luck, they could have beaten us that day. So listen, they won't be going in overconfident, definitely in any way, shape, or form, and they'll definitely be massive underdogs. But that takes a bit of pressure off, I think, as well. It'll take a little bit of pressure off, but they have great leaders there, and they've good lads to come on the subs, and I think they'll give it a great lash. Like Jamie Holland, Dahi Burke, all those guys. Like, they you can't say they deserve to win a county cup, but they've done it up along. But I think certain people would be willing. There was a man beside me from Clarinbridge, and he said, Dahi Burke nearly deserves one at this stage, for all he's given for club and county. But deserving and getting one is totally different. And they have to go out there and earn it, and that's what we hope they'll do.
Just a word on the finish again. As we mentioned, Turlough getting goals late on in this one, 5-16 to 21 points. For Oranmore Mary, it's obviously tough. They won two games. They lost the last games to Larkins. Then they had a 4 week break coming into this. Lost this again. But does it show to Oranmore Mary as well? I know it's great to win an under 20s A title and it's nothing at all to be sniffed at, but that there's still a lot of work to do after winning an under 20 title.
Yeah, listen, again coming into the game, Ardmore won the 20s, probably disrupted their preparation a little bit. They had a month from the quarter final or from their last group game into it. Lost to Tommy's, and I suppose for me, I always think that if you're winning, whether you're true or not, you should always aim to win all your club games or all your group games. That's a prerequisite. You have Craughwell doing it, you have Thomas's doing it, getting through. That's always good. They were just turned over. Tommy's just got the better of them on the day, and I suppose because they were true, whether the motivation was there to win the three of them. But coming in then, how they handled the month, the disruption of the 20s. But like at the end of the day, they are another club that have won. Like if you take it as a club going places, they're in their fifth minor final in a row. They've won the under 20. Their junior A's were in relegation last year. Were beaten after extra time by Liam Mellows this year in Pearse Stadium. So everything for Ardmore is pointing on the up. I know more than Clarinbridge. There's a kind of a learning phase, and this year was definitely good for them. And they've developed, I think, as a squad and as a group, and I think they will only get stronger. And again, they have good young lads coming through. If you look at Ardmore at all ages, 13, 14, they nearly have 3 or 4 teams at each of them level. They have serious amount coming through of players. And like 5 minors, like just think of that, 5 minor county finals in a row. Like that's serious. That takes serious work. So they are putting in the work. And now the key is for them is that next year they have to come back and they have to better what they did this year. There's no point getting to a quarter final. I think for me, the difference on Saturday when it came down to it was the little bit of experience from Turloughmore, where they were able to pick off crucial scores. And Rory Burke, one of the crucial things for me, and I suppose that was the moving of Killian Trayers onto Rory Burke. I felt he really, really did really well on Rory Burke. And like that, I think Ardmore will have regrets. They were well in the game, and I think the first goal unravelled them. And then, like Loughrea nearly, Turloughmore got on a roll, and the goals started going in. And after that, then it's very hard to recover, But it wasn't a 10 point win for me. And I think Ardmore, when they sit down to review their year, it will be positive. Would they have loved to go to a semi-final? Yeah. I just think it's a bit early for this group yet. For to be reaching a semi-final, but definitely in the next 2 years, their target needs to be a county semi-final at a minimum.
If we look at the first quarter final then between Craughwell and Sarsfields, I don't even
Yeah,
know where to start in this one, the amount of drama we had in this one. But
on and off the field.
yeah, on and off the field, four mentors getting sent off for Craughwell. I definitely think it's a record. I can't remember
Yeah,
that many hurling games where there's been four mentors sent off. And Craughwell people Saturday night very quick to remind me again that I got that one wrong. So I have to say
yeah,
fair play to them. But in fairness, the spirit of this Craughwell team coming into this game, I think everyone naturally had a doubt or two about Craughwell coming into this
yeah,
after the expectation of beating Loughrea. How were they going to deal with it? First time coming in top the group and coming in on the back of the break. But in fairness to them, um, they really showed up in this one and they're in a semi-final now and there's no reason why they can't push on even further this year.
yeah. And for me, to be fair, one of the key things is that I think by his own standards, Tom Monaghan wasn't his usual self in this game. All right, and he'll probably admit that himself. So I think when you take that into account, that Tom has been the most consistent player for Craughwell over the last few years. I don't think anyone will argue with that. But he while he played good. I felt at times his decision making let him down on Saturday. There was a few times he turned back into players which is not normally like him. He only came with 2 points, but then the rest of the players really stood up. You know, Kieran Lean, young guy, really, really stood up. Like he scored 113. Two sidelines, three from play. The rest from frees. and a goal. He scored a goal from play. He really stood up. The two sidelines were crucial at crucial stages. Um, their subs, like they brought on a sub, Conor Gagan. I think it was his debut.
Yeah.
So, like, you have to give kudos there to the management. It's a county quarter final, biggest game in the year for the club, and they brought on a guy, put him on Joseph Cooney. And to be fair, I thought he did massively well on Joseph Cooney, considering it's his debut, right? And they brought on what I liked. I know people say bring on subs. I like to call the subs game changers, because I think if you're coming on and you don't think you can change something, really there's no point in you coming on. That's just the philosophy I have. And this year with Celtic Challenge, the subs, we termed them not subs as game changers, and we used to make five game changers every game. Like, if you look at their subs, 1-4 off the bench, like, that's massive. Like, and that shows you that they had a good spread of scorers. Jamie Ryan tipped in with 3 points from play in the first half when they needed it and when they did it. So they had the leaders throughout. And again, if you look at, like, Adam Clark, 1-2 off the bench. Oisin Quirk, 2 points off the bench. Nigel Kelly did not get on the scoreboard. But my God, what I love about him as a corner forward, and I'd be big into work rate for my forwards when I'm coaching, is he never gives up. When he starts,
He,
he's a bundle of
he was a
energy.
player who was listed on the intermediates at the start of the year as well.
Yeah, yeah. And, like, to be fair, in their last game, I remember against Loughrea, he lost the ball in his own position, and he chased. It moved up the field, but he was the last man there to get a hook when Loughrea were trying to get a score. And it moved through the lines, and he's great energy, great work rate, and that's what's in the difference for me this year in Craughwell is there's that work rate. They seem to have a structure. Dahi Hooban coming in with the management team seem to have given them a bit of structure. Niall Healy has moved in there into a coaching role, so they've given a little bit of structure. The players seem to know their roles fairly well on the pitch, but they have belief when they bring in players that they're going to make a difference. And no more than Loughrea, they're in a semi-final now. They're unbeaten. You've the two unbeaten teams coming head to head in the semi-final. One of them records is going to have to go. People are writing off Craughwell. If you're coming up against a team that were 6 in a row champions before last year, so obviously Craughwell are going to be underdogs and massive underdogs for that game. But Craughwell, it's a shot to nothing for them now. They're in a semi-final, and the way they've played this year, they deserve to be in a semi-final, Paul. This is not a fluke now. They've beaten the county champions in the group. So I think they need to be respected as well, to be fair, that group of players put in a massive effort. Didn't go well in the league for them. I don't think they won a game in the league. They might have had a draw or so. Didn't really go well in the league. So if you were looking at them come in championship, you wouldn't really be saying. But they did the business in the group. They're now in a county semi-final under lights, and the best of luck to them. I think it'll be a great game. I just think, I suppose you mentioned the four sending offs. It's a bit strange, to be fair, four reds, and I suppose a kind of a sidebar from there. Two of their mentors that were sent off, Niall Healy and Keelan Green, have a junior C county final this weekend, I think. So I don't know, with red cards, does that mean they're ruled out of that? I just think that, for me, red cards are very harsh. Listen, there's things said in the sideline. I don't know what was said. I was back beside the streaming box, didn't hear what was said. Obviously, there was something said that the referee didn't like. I know the first one was a water carrier going on the field and encroaching, and he got sent out. The other three, there must have been something said. But, like, if I just take that red card straight off without a warning, for me, is very, very harsh. If I take the other three games that followed that game, in the game that followed immediately afterwards, there was yellow cards for similar instances brandished by the referees. I think a yellow card is your warning, and then if you get another yellow card or a red card, then you're off. Then I think you've had your warning. Like, if I take it, if I was at work and some of my staff weren't doing their job, if I was getting rid of them because they weren't doing their job, if you give them a verbal warning and say, listen, guys, you need to pull up your socks here, then you're giving them that chance. I just think that it's too harsh. You got to take these players. You got to take Craughwell, any of these clubs that are left in the 8 teams that were left. The amount of effort they've put in, both players and management. And we'll probably have three of the mentors for Craughwell will probably be suspended for a county semi-final. So the usual warm-up won't be the usual warm-up because they won't have Dahi Hooban. So whatever role Niall Healy has, they won't have that. Little things like that can upset apple carts. It can be an upset. So I just hope common sense applies. I know the referees and I do get it. I don't think that the if there's abuse roared at the referees that it should be. I get that, but I think a common sense has to happen. These are high pressured situations. They're going out representing their parishes, their clubs. There's nothing more they want than to win their battles. There's nothing the mentors want than to get over the line and drive their team on. And they're going to argue over every decision. And if you look at it on Sunday, the last game, both sidelines were hot and heavy, but I don't think there was a card brandished. So they'd obviously had words with the sideline officials and they worked it out or whatever. So I think I'd like to see across the board consistency. If it's a yellow card warning, that's your warning. If then you're stupid enough to get another yellow card or a yellow card, red card, then I think you deserve to walk. I honestly do. But I think banishing a red card straight away, I think is quite harsh. But listen, we weren't there. Brian made the decision, and that's what it is now. I just hope that if there's an appeal or whatever, that common sense prevails on it, because I don't think for all, I think it's a huge day for the Craughwell club, and I think it's a huge day for their management, and I think that every one of their management deserve to be on the line for a county semi-final, the biggest day in the club history in the last few years, in Pearse Stadium under lights against St. Thomas's. You got to give them every chance to try and beat Thomas's, and I think this is going to be a disruption that the Craughwell club, their chairman Kevin Quirk, they won't want coming up to, and they could use it as motivation. So, and if they do that and channel that in the right way, that could be used as a positive for them. But I just hope common sense prevails, and that the semi final is not decided in the Loch George in the rooms of the thing, you know.
For people saying maybe, oh, this is too soon for Craughwell, I don't believe that. I think all of that is nonsense. You're in a county semi-final,
Yeah,
you're in a competition. There's no guarantee with Capitagal. They're a prime example that you're going to be back here next year.
absolutely. Like every year is different. Every team is different. And like you'll mention Capitagal there. Like if you take the weekend, there was three teams out of the four-team group in the quarterfinals. Out of that group,
Yeah.
so one team was going to lose, Paul. So it was like a domino effect, and it was like one of them had to lose. Four couldn't go into three. It's as simple as that. No matter what way we look at it, no matter what way we dice it up, I'm sure Capitagal will have looked back over the year and have regrets, right? They didn't make it. Craughwell are now where Capitagal were last year. Can Craughwell now take that belief that Capitagal, I felt, gave clubs last year? And that's why, again, this year, clubs had a belief coming in that they could reach a county final because Capitagal gave them that belief. So can Craughwell now believe when they're playing Thomas's this year, like Capitagal believed last year against St. Thomas's, that they could get to a county final? Can they do the exact same thing as Capitagal do? I agree with you, Paul. I think Craughwell are there on merits. They're unbeaten. They've beaten the county champions. What's there to lose at this stage?
Yeah.
You know, if you were a Craughwell supporter and you're playing the near neighbours and they've played really well, I think they'll have confidence in a county semi-final. And I think they have youth on their side. I think they have energy off the bench. And if you have guys like Nigel Kelly chasing back balls back to the half back line and full back line when he loses, that tells you that they have the right attitude. And if you can get all 15, you mightn't. But if you can get 10 to 11 of the 15 in tune against Thomas's on that day, and they keep their discipline, and that's the key thing in county semi-finals. You need to keep your discipline because you're coming up against a Connor Cooney, and he'll shoot the lights out. So you just don't give them the chance. They can keep their discipline, bring their energy, have everyone on board on the sideline, and everyone go in the right direction, and get the Craughwell fans in there shouting behind them. What's to say they can't do what Capitagal did last year?
I think as well they met them last year in the preliminary quarter-final, and they competed really well against Thomas's in the first half, but the second half it just sort of went against them. That's a
Yeah,
good sort of reference point, and look back on that sort of footage and see where they went wrong. And even with a defeat like that, they can sort of use that, and they know that they'll have to Nearly bringing in another level too against Thomas's.
Yeah, and I think last year, now I'm open to correction here, but I think Ian Daniels was his first year last year as
Yeah,
manager. So, preliminary quarter final first year did well. He's changed up his backroom team, not changed up, but he's added on this year Niall Healy, who's a club legend in Craughwell. You know,
yeah.
you want a man standing over the freezes, Niall Healy you're looking for.
Particularly for the
He
likes there, as we're talking Nigel Kelly, Kieran Lean. Like, I don't think
oh,
there's a better person in Crowell you could get involved with them.
absolutely. And then they brought in Dahi Huban with experience. He's been around the club scene in Galway. He's been manager and coaches of different club teams. He's been involved in the academies in Galway, you know. So they've brought that experience in. So that experience alone and the additions to the team have meant that Craughwell have gone from a preliminary quarter final last year to a semi final this year. You know, it's no coincidence they've given young lads. You've mentioned there Nigel Kelly, named on the intermediate squad. Now he's on the senior team, starting in a county semi final, all going well in 2 weeks' time. Like that's massive for him, and like he has nothing to fear and go in there. And I think if Kieran Lean, all these young lads, Tiernan Lean ups his game a little bit the next day, really good against Loughrea. Very hard to keep that going in midfield. I thought he dipped a little bit the last day. He can raise his game. Tom Monaghan can go up a few levels again. All these guys going through, they have a very good fullback, they have a very good spine. Alan Canlon is good. They made the changes. The one thing I like about it is the management made the changes when they had to. They brought on a guy that hadn't played a minute of senior. He made his debut in a county quarter final. That shows guts, but that shows they have belief in their squad. If you have a management that have belief in your squad, when they go out in a county semi final, they're going to give everything for that management. And Ian Daniels has played a lot of hurling for Craughwell. You have no doubt them players look up to Ian. They look up to everyone in that sideline. Like you said, Niall Healy, they will leave everything. There will be nothing they won't leave on the pitch that day in Pearse Stadium. And if it's good enough to get over the line, then they'll get over the line. And if it's not, then they won't. It's as simple as that. It'll come down to small margins. It might come down to experience versus inexperience. But do I give them a chance? I absolutely give them a chance because they're one of the four teams left in the championship. And to me, once you're there, if you're not there, you can't have a chance, and they're there. So all you can do is wish the club luck and the players and the management as well.
Your heart would go out for Sarsfields. You even look
Absolutely.
back to last year, Captagal, it was devastating in one sense how that game went against them for Sarsfields supporters. When young McCarthy puts that goal in the back of the net, you're thinking it defend here well, and we're into the semi final. Somehow Adam Clark manages to find himself in space and finishes superbly. But for Sarsfields, it's going to be hard for those players not to think of that moment now quite a lot for the next few weeks.
Yeah, funny enough, I was beside a lot of loyal Sarsfield supporters the last day watching the game, and it was great. It was great banter going on. It was to and fro, and I suppose that finish. What I say is that last play, having watched Sarsfields, having coached against them over the years, having observed them, it was very on Sarsfields like the very last play. Sarsfields are renowned for game management, and just that last play and the way the ball, they'd normally kill that. Something would have happened in there. The ball wasn't protected and it shot out. And in fairness to Craughwell, they took their chance. But it just, that last play, when German McCorry had it, they were going wild beside me. And it just, it just then went that the ball wasn't killed, and that just gave Sarsfields, or that just gave Craughwell the chance. And once you gave Craughwell the chance, they just took it. And as you said, Adam Clark stuck it in the net, and the rest is history. And it's second year in a row for Sarsfields, and you look at it and say, what do they have to do to get over the line? They brought on Joseph Cooney. He did really well. Craughwell tried to negate that by bringing on Conor Gagan. And then Joseph went off. And I have to say, after Joseph went off, a little bit of leadership went out of that forward line. The leadership went out. Kevin scored 2-8, had a really good game. But overall, like, he scored two goals from play. But again, he wasn't his usual buzzing self in there. Do you know? So although he was hitting the freeze, for me he wasn't. And Joseph coming on at half time was massive. But just going off, and listen, you just wish him the best luck getting back from injuries. He's just getting injury prone now, but he's a huge player for that club. And watching him beforehand, trying to inspire them in the huddle before the match, at extra time, no doubt in the dressing room, he's a leader within that club, always has been, always will be. And I say they're gutted up there this week, but they just didn't close it out, and that's very unsatisfying. Like that's all I'll say with the finish. I don't think they could have done much more. They took it to the well. They went as far as they could, and again, it was just Craughwell just had that little bit of belief, maybe that little bit more energy in the legs as well in the last few minutes. I felt Sarsfields were waning just a little bit going into that second period of extra time, just a little bit. I felt that Craughwell was just that little bit fresher, just a little bit fresher.
If we look at the other game, St. Thomas's 118, Tommy Larkins 19 points.
Yeah,
Hard to sort of not laugh in one sense when you see what Thomas's are still doing, and the way are still just masters when it comes to Galway Club Hurling Championship of just always finding a way. The way Conor Cooney can get the ball over to Victor Manzu, and the
yeah,
finish is superb under pressure, considering everything that's at stake. Because Larkins obviously trailing at the break, and then it sort of felt like they really timed their run right with Kevin McHugh. They got into the lead in injury time,
yeah,
19-18 at the right time, and
yeah,
all momentum with Tommy Larkins. But
yeah.
Thomas's do what they do best.
Absolutely. I'd be straight up with you. I looked out in the field afterwards, and the devastation on those Tommy Larkins players. The club has been a fantastic year. They're in a Junior B, they're in a Junior D final. They really wanted to get to a semi final of the senior. There's no doubt in my mind. I'm sure massive work has gone in there. They've been so consistent over the last few years. On days this year hadn't always given consistency, but in the second half, the last day, they came out 8 points down and came out and really took the game to St. Thomas's. And at stages, Thomas's didn't have answers to what they were throwing at them. And I know Aina Murphy scored 6 points from frees. Really good performance. Pulled off an unbelievable save as well at the near post. And they were going, Kevin McHugh was going really well. And Connor Gardner, I thought, was having a massive game on Fintan Burke. I thought it was a great tussle. There was high ball going in. Fintan was doing what he was doing best, trying to. But I thought when Connor was taking him out under the stand, he was taking Fintan away from where Fintan wanted to be. But he had to follow him. He had to go there because they needed Fintan really to manage that situation. And I thought that was a massive contest in the game. And Fintan got a few frees coming out like he normally does, was the hand goes up over and he gets the frees in those instances. And it was just intriguing in that first half. And Thomas's looked like they were thing it. And then Larkins came back and just they ripped in. And there was a man from Clarinbridge beside me, and he just said, Larkins are doing well, but they need to get ahead. And if they get ahead, he said, they'll win the game. And I suppose you kind of were wondering at that stage, they were 4 down. You were going, geez, Larkins won't get ahead here. But then they did get ahead. And then you were going, God, is this going to be the shock of the weekend? Is this going to be, because you always expect out of the 4, there'll be one shock. But then you're saying they bet them last year. Do they have that belief now to go and beat them the second year in a row? And, Jason Flynn scored 2 points, wasn't his thing. Connor Slattery had a great game, 3 points from play. Probably not enough of a spread of scorers, but they were doing enough in a tight game. And when it came down to the end, they went ahead. They got the point ahead. Everyone said, this is it. But you have to give massive credit to St. Thomas's. And people can say what they want. St. Thomas's are there and they have the experience of getting over the line. And U of A and Burke scored 5 points from play in a county quarter final, right? You have Conor Cooney scored 9, 7 frees, 2 from play. You have Victor Manso coming up with 1-2. Big plays at key moments. You have David Burke chipping in with 1. You have Dara Burke coming in with 2 points. All those players have loads of county medals. What drives them? What drives them to win another county medal? What is the hunger? What is it? You know, Cahill coming in as a manager, you have to give him huge credit because he's coming in after all the other successful managers who both did 3 in a row. And he's come in there, have been part of the management team. And you have to give him huge credit for taking that on in the first place. But huge credit in the hunger that he's kept in these players. So they have huge. The last time I was on here, I think I tipped St. Thomas's this year to win the cup. And I think if I remember right on the night, I said if they were to win this, I think they'd put this up as one of their biggest wins ever because they didn't get their 7 in a row. They were stopped at a semi-final. If they were to come back this year and beat Craughwell and then get whoever they're playing in the final and win it, I think this would be they would see this as one of their great achievements. Maybe I'm wrong, but there's something driving these players because they owe the club nothing. But they have great belief, they have great hunger because Connor Cooney was the man that gave the pass. Connor Cooney had the will and known of where he had to be in that clutch moment of the game. He had to be between the 21 and the 30-yard line to get that ball. He took on that defense and he popped the pass. He drew the defenders in and he popped the pass to Victor Manzo. The easiest thing to do for most lads would be tap that over the bar, draw a game, extra time. But Victor had the guts to go for goal and bang, they win the game. Do you know what I mean? So it was a massive play in the game.
Where they currently do you feel? Because in that second half, it looked like things were going against them, and I know it's character, and again, it's digging out, but it's sort of they have been impressive, but it is sort of the unknown if you think of it, because the game against Athenry left a lot of scores behind them that day,
Yeah,
17 wides. That was their last game. Tommies, they come and they were winning and then they were losing, and they nearly get out of jail in one sense. And now they're going into a semi-final against Craughwell. They were coming with lots of momentum. Where do you feel Thomases are currently at? Obviously, you said last time you were on, you were tipping them, but
yeah.
where do you see them now?
To be fair, listen, I tipped them, and I'm not going to change my mind now. Even after what I seen the weekend, I still have them for me. As winning the county cup. That's just I'm not going to change midstream or go. So I tipped them at the far out in the year, right? You can say and look at them. Where are they now? They're unbeaten, right? They haven't lost since the semi-final last year. They had an average league, but they had a lot of lads with the county. So they were building. So lads have got plenty of game time in that squad. They are unbeaten. They have serious belief. They won 6 in a row. You were on earlier about Turlough would love 1 in a row. You know what I mean? These guys have 6 in a row. In their memory bank, they only see winners. They're going to lose over a period of time of 10 years. They're going to lose certain big games. That's just going to happen. Their big game to lose, and they didn't want to lose it last year, was the semi-final to Capitagle.
Hmm.
But they've bounced back now and they haven't lost since. So they will fully believe they're going to beat Craughwell under lights in Pearse Stadium. If they do that, they're in a county final. I could be on with you before a county final if St. Thomas's are in it and whoever they're playing the next side. And I will still say that they have belief and that they could still believe they're going to win the county cup. There's no doubt they do. If they didn't have the belief that they feel they can win the county cup this year, the clutch moment the last day wouldn't have happened. These things don't happen by instant. Clubs train now to the nth degree. These things are planned as in last moments of games. We're down 3 points. We're down 2 points with a minute to go. What do we do? Things are thought out. They do scenarios in training. Every team is at it. It has to be in the memory. They've done it for so long. They just do not know when to give up. And that's where I see them. That's where I believe the motivation this year has to be to reclaim the cup. And that's where I see the last day when they scored that goal. That's why I said believe from the start of the year they were the dark horse, and I still believe today, and I would have them still as winning the county cup. I definitely think they're going to reach the county final if they turn up with the right mindset. But if they turn up any way off or take Craughwell in any way, shape, or form for granted, Craughwell could easily turn them over. So they got their warning shot last year against Capitagle, who deservedly beat them on the day. I don't think there's anything that'll happen. They deservedly. I know they might be contention over a goal that they scored, but the whistle was long gone and the free had been given out. And they were beaten fair and square on the day, and they've turned around this year. They've got on with their business, and they're in a county semi-final again, unbeaten, and put up some serious scores along the way. So I think they have to be respected for that. And it's just the reason I am putting them uh, as for me for the favourites is they just have the experience overall in their squad. So you're not talking about they're bringing true lads all the time, but they have the. And for me, they're doing it this year without Oisin Flannery, who'd be a huge player for them in years to go. But they're bringing on James Regan starts. They might bring him off. They're bringing Damien Finnerty in, or they're changing it up. Cathal Burke is not starting, but what a player to bring on to settle things down. They changed around their team a little bit the last day. Darren Farrell went back wing back, but then they moved him up wing forward. They just have that fluidity that they're able to, within their squad, able to do it. They've obviously been in these positions in league games, so management have trust in them. So again, they have a really good management team, have been there and done that, seen it, bought the t-shirt. So why would they not feel now at training this evening or last night thinking, hey lads, we can reach this final? And then when you reach a final, it's 50-50, isn't it, Paul?
Just as we mentioned there with the semi-finals, they're obviously going to be in Pearse Stadium as double header, and a lot of people coming in with questions. What is your opinion on the county board putting games into Pearse Stadium? Will the crowds match those of last year in Kenny Park? There is something about Saturday night under lights. It does create a bit of a buzz. It's something we haven't had in Galway, and we've probably nearly been jealous in one sense looking at other counties. Even when you've seen games in Thurles, you've seen football games in Mayo
Yeah.
under lights, Parnell Park under lights, live on RT, and different bits and pieces. So it is nice to get this experience. But what's your opinion on it now?
Listen, I'm always of the opinion, I might be old school sometimes, but Athenry for me is the home of hurling on semi-final days. The buzz, the people are on it. I've been lucky enough to be there on the sidelines on it, and God, you feel small when you have the eyes praying down the back of your neck. It's a huge occasion. Everyone gets it. The other side of it, you have to kind of applaud the county board here. They've floodlights, big investment in Pearse Stadium. Paul Bellew and his team have looked at it. They've made a decision to bring it to Pearse Stadium. Will everyone be happy? No. But at the same time, I think they wanted to try something different. They've gone with it and stood with it. I just hope that all four teams, and this is one thing that I would say, that all four teams are allowed to train at least once on the pitch or be there at before the semi-final. I think that should be a minimum, because it's a massive thing going in playing under lights when you haven't done it. There's not too many pitches in Galway that are floodlights that can play for match lights, and I'd say all four teams have been searching the county during the week looking for pitches with lights since they've qualified. So I hope that the county board would let them in there at least and train in there. I don't think they're going to do any damage to the pitch, to be fair. And I think it'd be only right so they can get used to the lights. Even things from a goalkeeper standing under the goal, a ball dropping, that they can get used to that coming in. If a high ball, if their tactic is hitting in high balls hit into the full forward, that they catch it, playing through the lines, they get used to it. I think the lights, from what I seen when they launched it, they look really impressive. They're going to host inter-county games this year. So whether we like it or not, Galway are going with this. So in one way, I applaud the county board for going with it. People will say I won't go in there. I think a lot will turn up for the novelty factor. Myself, I think it'll be easier to get in the evening than it will during the day. So, I welcome it. I think for lads after the match going to town, I think the pubs in Galway will definitely be see an increase in. There'll be lots of lads going out for a few beers afterwards, win, lose or draw. I think a Saturday night, what have we to lose? I'd urge people to go in. Listen, we we all have our ways, we all have our things. But if you're a supporter from one of them four clubs, I would seriously urge you to get into Pearse Stadium. Whether you think the idea is good or not, those players and those four teams deserve your support. All I'd say is I'd urge you to get in there. And any neutral that wants to see two classic games of hurling, get in there, because there will be a puck of a ball between these teams. Because what we've seen, Paul, I think you'll agree, the weekend, this championship this year is telling us one thing. Teams have more belief than ever that there's no big gaps between the teams. There's a few teams have won, but the four teams we have left, a lot of games they've played in have been tight encounters. And that's what makes it really fascinating for me that these are going to be four teams going at it, and we're going to have two cracking semi-finals. My advice to everyone: get to Pierce Stadium, get in there. Don't have in your head it's going to be cold. The stand is big enough. We'll fit everyone in the stand if we have to. Get into Pierce Stadium, get behind, bring the colour, bring the razzmatazz. These players have been training, some of them from November, to represent you. Get out there and really get behind them and show them that you're behind them and that you appreciate their amateur players, and what they're doing for your club jersey really means a lot. And get out there and support them. That would be my advice. And listen, I applaud the county board for what they're trying to do here.
Yeah, no, I concur with everything you said there, Jerry. And even for some neutrals, like even from other clubs, they'd love to be in the four clubs positions of in the semi final and to be
Yeah.
crying out for it. So, um,
The
ju
four losers, Paul, you just look at it, the four losers, like when they woke up on Monday morning, some two of them on Sunday, like they would have given their right arm to be in a county semi final. They're not there now. And I'll guarantee you one thing: knowing the four clubs that were beaten, they would bring colour, pageantry
yeah,
to Pure Stadium. So I think that I do think, to be fair, the clubs that are in the semi final are well supported clubs. You know what I
yeah,
mean? They're passionate supporters. They do fill at and Ryan County semi final days. They'll definitely they won't be able to fill Pure Stadium because it's just that vast of a stadium. It's bigger. And I just hope that if everyone is in the stand, that the noise there will get it, and hopefully they bring drums, whatever they need to do to rack up the noise. Bring the drums like Mellows did a few years ago when they walked the year that they conquered that they won the county cup, where they had drums coming in and they had songs and all that. I think it'll be done, and hopefully it goes well. And we wish everyone the best of luck with the staging of it, and wish all the four teams in the semi final the best of luck. And hopefully any injuries this week and niggles are overturned, and that they can put forward on the team, on the pitch, the best 15 that they can put forward for their clubs, and that all sidelines have all their management teams in place. That'd be my wish, and the common sense would prevail on the sidelines.
just a word, Jerry, on the senior relegation final. So at Ardrahan 119, Kilkiniron 13 points. Ardrahan retain their Senior Hurling Championship status for 2026. Kilkiniron will be a Premier Intermediate club next year. In fairness to Ardrahan, it was professional performance.
Yeah.
Even considering the Gort game, that was a big setback. Obviously, being close to Gort, it's one they would have targeted to win. But in fairness to Francis O'Connor and his team, they refocused for the 2 weeks. They got the result. They're delighted. In the other sense, we were talking about Kilkiniron making progress throughout the group, but it probably was a bit of a downer for them that they didn't get a result with that progress, and it's even probably back to that Clymer Daly game. It probably did mentally, I suppose, get to them considering how close they are, and to lose that one by a point.
Yeah, listen, I think watching from the outside, the Clymer Daly game was the game that probably undid Kilkiniron this year, because the challenges they were going to place after that were vast, and the teams facing in Capitagal and who were in a county final last year, I'm sure they would have had the experience, or felt they had the experience, to get the measure of Kilkiniron on the day. And that's how it panned out on the day. And then Ardrahan going in the last day, there was a lot on the line for them, their club history, how many years they were consistently senior. They have a good underage structure, the same as Kilkiniron. Kilkiniron had it, but very hard to pick, because I do, from talking to a few Kilkiniron supporters, I think they felt aggrieved with some of the decisions that were made on that day uh, against them, and they felt a few decisions went against them. And I think that once they didn't get over the line against Clymer Daly, or even get a draw that maybe score difference might have done it for them, because they put in some really good performances. They ran Loughrea very well in the first round of the championship. They have a really good young team. Can they come up from Premier Junior? Absolutely. They're going down there,
Premier
and
intermediate.
or sorry, Premier
Yep.
Intermediate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Apologies. They will. they will go down there and see themselves as one of the favourites to come back up. And I think they have the youth, they have the youth structure to do that. And I think they have that to come back up. And, with all these changes, it's great, but there's only one team going down. I'd love to see a thing where there's double jeopardy, where there's two teams going from senior and two coming up from Premier Intermediate. I think that happened a few years ago. I remember when I was with Capitagal the first time, once you won your semi final, you went up. And I think that added, and it also keeps a little bit of balance. I think when you do that, I don't think the county board will go that far, but I'd like to see that coming back in, because I think it gives everyone, it gives you a bit more, because one team coming up out of 16 next year, only one team going down. Does that kind of keep it? I'd like to see two up, two down. I think that would be a far better championship in both. And I think that the first round, second round, the second round games in the senior then mean a lot, because it's with one team going down, you'll still have a semi-final and final. It's only a semi-final you'd have then. If you lose, you're relegated, so I think that would bring a bit of intrigue into championship, maybe give them something to think about over the next while. That's what I'd like to see happen. But I think Kilkenarn have got the talent coming through to be able, and they are a young team. Again, in a relegation playoff, you need everything going for you. And I think getting a player sent off on a second yellow card doesn't help your cause in, like, relegation. I suppose people don't realize, but a relegation playoff is one of nearly like the same as a county final for a club. Like, the
Yeah,
prize is
definitely.
massive. It's absolutely massive. I don't think people, if you're not involved in situations like that, you don't think it. I was involved years ago, when I was with Pádraig Pearses, and coming up that week, them 2 weeks, the pressure that was on to ensure that club waited, because they had a history, and getting players back and making sure everyone's in the mindset to go. Like, that's massive. And when you have a player sent off and then things are going against you, and did the ref and decision go against me here and there, and Ardrahan are experienced. And I'd be straight up, I was really impressed with Ardrahan throughout the championship. Although they were getting beaten, they were impressed. Even against Clarinbridge, they had 6 points that they should have had again before Clarinbridge. Before Clarinbridge got going, they had six wides. So, like, they've won. I think they're there on merit. Keenan Fahy, for me, has been one of the standout players in the championship, and I think he was really good again the weekend. They've been plagued by injuries in the first two rounds, so maybe could they have got over against Cashilgar? The senior championship in Galway is so tight. You see yourself, one team will have a brilliant year, but it swings and roundabouts. There's a point or two in it, and that's just the toughness of the championship. And if you take it last year, if I take it on what Loughrea did against Coola, they'll have regrets on that. Is there a pushing them to get back there? Only they can tell us that. I'd say if you were in the huddle with Tommy Kelly and them the last day, they were saying we need to keep going. It just shows you how tough people were writing off Loughrea before last weekend. Now, I don't think people are writing off Loughrea again. So it just shows you that you can never write off any team in the Galway Club Championship. And, we don't like to see anyone get relegated. Someone has to go through the trapdoor. It's Kilkenarden. But I do believe that they have the talent coming back up. They're knocking on the door at under 16 and minor level and the last few years. And they've had the talent at minor and under 20 coming through. So I have no doubt that they'll be really pushing hard and will see themselves as one of the favourites for next year Premier Intermediate. And listen, you win Premier Intermediate next year, the prize is massive. You're going into a Connacht Championship representing Galway, going on to an All Ireland series. What would that do for a club like Kilkenarn? I'm only using them because we're talking about them. To get to Crow Park, play in Crow Park, win an All Ireland Club Intermediate. What has it done for Oranmore from the last few years? They've progressed on. They need to progress more. So I think that the carrot next year for those teams in Premier Intermediate is massive. So it'll be a good championship. Yeah, looking forward to it already.
Yeah, even particularly with that Loughrea and Fina games, what we'd probably think about with the last Galway senior club in the All Ireland semi final. But
Yeah,
with that, Galway champions only 2 games away from an
yeah,
All Ireland semi final as well. Um,
absolutely.
yeah,
The
so
prizes are massive. Yeah,
if we look at Senior B, then the lineup confirmed for the final, Haskell play Lee Meadows in this year's Senior B hurling final. Haskell 21 points, Ballandereen 17. Haskell closest game to date this year in the Senior B hurling championship, but they found a way and they got through. A really impressive Ballandereen who have been big performers this year throughout the Senior B championship. A particular Cathal Mannion, 13 points out of 21. 7 frees, 6 from play. Crucial again for Haskell for one half, but still at this present moment in time look like the form team in this championship.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, it's no coincidence that the only All Star nomination we had this year in hurling was Cathal Mannion, and
Yeah.
he's carrying that form through at club level, and like if he doesn't get Club Hurler of the Year, I think there'd be something wrong at this stage. To be fair, within Galway, because I think his performances have just been exceptional, and like. When you were in that Ahaska dressing room, you look around. You have Pádraig Mannion and you have Cathal Mannion, two main men for Galway over the last few years. Like that obviously gives you confidence. If you concede a free, if a free is conceded, Cahill will score them, but he will also chip in from play, and he's also busy, and he's hard to tie down. And what I'll say about Ballinderry the weekend is Ballinderry really put it up to a Haskra. And I'd say if you spoke to any of the Haskra management or any of the Haskra players or any of the supporters who were probably worried at stages in that game, they will say that Ballinderry gave them the toughest game of the championship. And but again, a Haskra found a way. And Robbie Meehan was outstanding in the first half and was a real influence in that game. And you know, they felt at half time, I'd say, that they had a really good cut, but their performances all year, they bet Mellows. You know, they had been really good performances all year by Ballinderry, and I do agree with you. They have been on the up, and their management team deserve huge credit. And to run, they would obviously have loved to get to the final, but I think they'll take consolation this weekend that they've given a Haskra, have been the outstanding team in Senior B, unbeaten, biggest scorers, have been not been putting up scores for fun. But I think now as well, maybe the management are secretly happy that they got a really tough semi-final, that they're able to kind of beat them with a stick going into a final. Going, lads, listen, fair enough, we've been shooting the lights out, but they've very shrewd men over them there, and I have no doubt they'll be told the county final is going to be another step, and we need to be right for that. So Cahill, absolutely outstanding, 13 points. Like if you have someone that's going to score 13 points going out every day, and that's the starting point, like that's brilliant. And he's been doing that consistently all season, so he hasn't shirked for club or county this year. He's been just phenomenal, and I'm sure all in a Haskell want one more big one out of him, and he is that'll be in 2 weeks now. So it's great for the both parishes involved.
Yeah, Lee Mellows in the other one, 223 to 221 winners over Kilnadine and Leitrim. Leaving it late, Lee Mellows, but got the result in the end, having lost to Ballindereen in the group and having lost to Kilnadine and Leitrim in the group. Really impressive against Port Pierces in that quarter final, the manner of it, and showed a different side of the game this time in the semi final to dig a win out like that.
Yeah, they did. And the one thing for me about Lee Mellows, and I know they had been hit and miss in group stages, but if you look back over the years, there's always that level of consistency with them. And even when they were getting to semi-finals and finals in the senior, they mightn't have always shot the lights in the group, but when it came to knockout stages, they know how to win. And like I talk about St. Thomas's in the senior, when it comes to Senior B, they have loads of lads with county medals in their back pocket still playing, and there's a hunger there. And they have lost twice in the group, and they've come out and they've got over against Porrick Pearson, and they were very professional. They did the job, and they were playing against 14 men for a lot of that second half. So that kind of probably the scoreboard, probably the score in the end probably didn't reflect maybe the game as such, but they were professional. They did what they had to do. They have an experienced management team. David Collins is there, who's a club legend. They have Shane Curley added into the management this year. Shane had success, brought his own club Four Roads to win the county title. And he has loads of experience. He was on part of the Capitagle management team for a few years, and he's a really experienced coach. So they have a really good management team. By all accounts, the training was going well. They've blended between last year and this year a kind of a good core of players, and they're bringing true youth. And if I just mention two that for me have been standing out, is Luke. Them have been standing out really. Two wing backs. Their forwards have been consistent. If you ask anyone over the weekend, was it a really good performance? Who were the star performers? Connor Hines, I think, was really good start to finish. But I think anyone at the game would probably have said that Cullen Malloy was a standout performer on both teams. So Mellows did what they had to do, got around. Connor Hines got the goals. They they kept in it until the end and they got their scores. And that was the key things. That was the difference. They got their scores at the crucial moment. And that's all you can ask for, Paul. They got their scores. They won't be shooting out the lights. I don't think they'll be shouting over it. They'll know they'll have a lot of work to do to keep with a Haskra. Like if they're giving Cathal Mannion 13 points, like they're going to have to come up with a lot to claw that back. So I don't think anyone in Mellows will be under any illusions that they have a hard 2 weeks work ahead of them to plan. They have experience of being in county finals, the same as a Haskra, and you would imagine that it will be a good county final in 2 weeks' time. And one I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah, stakes huge as well because the loser knows the Premier Intermediate, and
Yeah.
you can be assured Lee Meadows or Haskell have no plans to be playing some of these teams again next year, so that'll
No,
be their target now to.
it's a massive prize. No more than the relegation from the senior. This is a massive prize going up. And if you look at it, it shows you sometimes there's not much between senior B and senior A. Athenry have gone up this year and flourished. They've really went up there. Last year they weren't winning all their games by landslides. They were getting over the line in some of them, but they went up to senior A and have been a really good team up in senior A and have really done well in their first year. So I think whoever goes up here will also go up and flourish. But who does that? Who's going to prepare best for the next 2 weeks and who's going to believe? You'd have to make a Haskra the only unbeaten team. Mellow's been beaten twice. When it comes to a final, no matter what anyone says, it's 50-50 to a certain degree. And it's anyone's days. Mellows will believe that going in. A Haskell will believe they can win it. And it will really come down on the day. It might come down to a refereeing decision. Could Cahill be held a little bit quieter? Who do they put on him? What strategy do they go against a Haskell? What strategy do a Haskell go against Liam Mellows? They have a
Yeah.
really experienced team. Tyke Harron has loads of experience. Adrian Morrissey has loads of experience. Sean Morrissey at full back. They have a really good goalkeeper. They have a good puck out strategy. So, there's loads of intrigue in this. So, I think both management teams will be plotting and planning. And this weekend could be the winning or losing, where they really sit down and put out the plan on probably a whiteboard and say, how are we going about it? They won't change their style. They won't change their principles, but they might change their tactics for the game. And that's going to be the key for me. Will it be Kinney Park? Was Ballinasloe last year? The fact that the semi-finals are not in Kinney Park, will they give Kinney Park the billing for the Senior B? I hope they do. I think it'd be really good if they gave it to Kinney Park. I think it'd be a great game there. I think it would bring a great crowd, and the fans would be down on top of it. And I think Athenry deserve a game like that for the weekend, especially when the senior semi-finals are not there.
Yeah, in fairness, yeah, 19th of October, 1:45. So that is Sunday, the 19th of October, 1:45. Lee Mellows at Haskell at Kenny Park.
Brilliant, brilliant.
So
That's
that
delighted to hear that. Now I'll pencil that in the diary now. That's great. Yeah, lovely. One to watch, one to look forward to.
if we look at the Intermediate Hurling Championship, Ballygare 117, Rahul Newcastle 112. In fairness, Rahul Newcastle made Ballygare work for this result in the Intermediate Championship quarter final. Meelick Aircourt then 122, Carmore 12 points. So this now sets up a meeting between Meelick Aircourt and Ballygare in the first semi final.
Yeah, and Ballygare, as you said there, Rahun put it up. I'd seen Rahun play this year. They're a dogged team, some really good players, and they have a good youth structure there coming through. Ballygare though have been very impressive all year and have got over the line in games. Maybe other years they weren't getting over the line. They have some youth coming through the club now at all levels, and you look at Cahill Maloney there, Harry Holmes, Joey Wallace. Like, these are good young lads that they're gelling with the team, and they're able to bring experienced guys off the bench. I think Stephen Lohan came on. I think maybe he had number 4 in his back. It was Diarmuid O'Brien, I think, that got the goal. Maybe he was up the field. Numbers now for me mean nothing. You could end up anywhere in this day. Hurling has just gone like that. It's gone very fluid, but very battle hardened. They're being against Meelick Aircourt. I'll be straight up. I was a bit surprised with the score or the manner of the defeat for Carmore. Carmore, in fairness, have been Jackie Welch, I think, has done really well over the last 3 years with them. I think he's really improved them. When he took them over, they were probably they definitely weren't where Carmore should have been from the base they were coming from. They were coming from a low base. I think he's really steadily taking them on an upward trajectory. The club as a whole in Carmore is going well. Under 20 A1 champions this year. They won the Junior D on Saturday, and just I suppose a four-note on that is for the Heinz's TJ and Rasa, father and son, winning a county medal together. I think TJ was part of the management, and Rasa was I don't know, did Rasa come on, but he was playing. So I think that's nice and shows you what the GA is about. That you can play junior D, and you can play with siblings and things like that. And I think that's one of the good things about hurling it in Galway. We've down to junior F, so you know what I mean. It's great that people can do that, and that's the beauty of the GA. But I think Carmore will be disappointed. But for me, Mila Court have been threatening like this all year. They just haven't done it. They haven't given that performance all the time, but they have been threatening it. And of getting there, but like they have quality in their play. Like, you have Nathan Erner scored 13 points, really good. You have Finn Gohry scored 1-3. You have John Fleming, a county senior player in your team. Carnmore don't have that county senior player. They have Connor Flaherty, who raises it, and they have the usual guys then throughout the field that all chip in. But they're a young team, and they're an up and coming team. So I think while it hasn't gone for them this year, again, like I said with anyone else, over the next 2 or 3 years, could Carmore aim for that Premier Intermediate, get a Connacht title, and aim for Croke Park? That's the beauty now for these. They winning in 20s A1 will be massive for them, because there's a flux of young players coming through. They were beaten in the quarter final of the minor this year. They have good players coming through. I know through the Celtic Challenge that I happen to be involved with the last few years. We've had they have good leaders, and for the last 2 years, two of their players have been joint captains over the last 2 years. So they have great leaders coming through, and they also have good players. So I think while they'll be really disappointed, I think when Decky sits down and reviews his 3-year term, and I think when the club review the 2-year term, I think they're on an upward trajectory. And, is Decky going to do another year? It'd be a shame for him to walk away just because of a defeat in a quarter final like that. But he's a busy man. He's with the under 16s. He's also with the under 8s or under 9s. So, like, he's busy. I seen him recently where they won an A1 Shield, beating Turloughmore. Decky was manager there, and he was as loud and active on the sideline as normal. So, he's busy. So, like to see him stay on if he had the appetite to stay on, because I think they're going in the right direction. But an intriguing semi-final, because Ballygar will go in there believing they'll beat Mila Court. Mila Court probably have that little bit more experience at this knockout stage over the last few years, and haven't got over the line. Is this the year that they go through the ceiling and get to the final and give themselves the chance to win a county title? I think it'll be good, and it would set them up then next year nicely for Premier Intermediate. Do you know what I mean? To have a right go at it.
You just look at the other two quarterfinals then, Jerry. Beha 22 points, Ceylon 21, Kinvara 113, Scahanamont, Ballymoylaw 12 points. Now means Beha will play Kinvara in the other semi-final.
Yeah, and listen, I suppose I start with the losers here. I suppose if I start with Ceylon and Scahana, Montpellier, Moylaw first, I suppose the two of them, both sets of players, they probably will feel today that maybe this is a missed opportunity for them. I know Ceylon, to be fair, I'd have to give them huge credit, because they knew coming into, once they were relegated down to junior, to Premier Junior, that then they went on to the knockout stages. So you have to give the players and the management huge credit in that the way that they've approached the knockout stages here. Very, very unlucky on Saturday by all accounts. Ceylon, anyone that I've been talking to that was at the game said Ceylon gave a huge account of themselves. I think maybe missed a goal at the very end. Bit unlucky. Beha were hanging on for all their experience. They just hung on and got over the line. But again, that little bit of experience, again, they were undefeated. They'd been undefeated all year. So they were showing the form team, but Ceylon put it up to them. So you have to give them huge credit. Skibellew, probably coming into the game, I would have given them a huge shout against Kinvara. But I think on the day, Kinvara just had that little bit of more experience. Dara Helibert was their main man. When you have a guy like Connor Whelan on, in your squad. You still have that experience, whether he scores, shoots the lights or not. You still have that experience. They had the experience over the last few years of reaching the knockout stages, reaching the final last year. They have that experience, and that probably just told in the end. That experience just told in the end. But it's been a really good year for Desi O'Brien and Scabellew. And they're going places again. They're a club that are really developing at youth level, 15s and 16s and 14s. They're now at A1 and A and competing with all the good clubs up there in the county, and that can only be good for them. So while I start with them, you have Kinvara and Beha in that semi-final. That's going to be a massive. It's a local derby, I suppose, as such. That will be a massive battle, and both will go in believing that they can win it. Beha, to give them credit, they're still going. Joe Gantley is going as strong as ever. Although, to be fair to Ceylon, they they um they handled them quite well the last day. Kinvara are going in there. They have a good lot of youth coming through Kinvara, and they'll believe that they will win that semi-final. So again, the intermediate have two really good games, no more than the senior. There'll be nothing between either of these teams. All four will go in believing that they can get to the next stage and win the county cup, get into the final, and put themselves in a position to win the county cup. So again, two good games coming up, and whets the appetite for the intermediate championship, which I think in the main this year, Paul, I'd say you'll agree, has been quite competitive. It's been a good
Yeah,
good
there hasn't
championship.
been that one standout team
No,
uh, other than previous years where you'd think is just going to win this fairly easily. I think even with the four left, it's still very hard to pick a winner there.
yeah, yeah. They all went down to the last team, and you have to think like that. Four clubs coming into this championship knew that they were gone before they even pucked a ball, and all four of them, put in performances at different time they can be proud of. And I think all the games nearly went to the last round in the intermediate championship. So that tells you whether you knew you were relegated or you didn't know you were relegated. Everyone gave it their all till the very end. So that just makes the championship. And I suppose for Steel Tech as the sponsors, it's great for them that they're involved in something like this that actually makes it all the more worthwhile. You know what I mean? Down to the end.
Yeah, so just on a couple of fixtures next weekend, Junior 1 semi-finals, Ballinasloe, Micheál Brannach's 2 o'clock in Ballinasloe, and Kiltormer saw Knocknacarra in the other Junior 1 semi-final, and that's at 2 o'clock as well. Both of those games Saturday week on Saturday, October 18th. Two winners of this will play in the Junior 1 final, and the winner of the Junior 1 championship will go forward to represent Galway at junior level. Um, just in the intermediate semi-finals, then Kinvara they'll play Beha uh, on Sunday, the 19th of October in Kenny Park at 12 o'clock. That forms part of a double header with the Senior B final between Lee Mellows and Haskell at 1:45. Then Mealy Court and Ballygare, they will play in the other Intermediate Hurling Championship semi final at 2:15 in Duggan Park. And then in the Junior A county final, Thomas's and Loughrea, two teams we've talked about at senior level, both of their second teams will face off then at 4 o'clock for the Junior A Hurling Championship title. So two pieces of silverware, significant pieces of silverware up for grabs next weekend. But that's all we do have time for on today's show. Gerry, thanks a million for your time.
Paul, no, thanks as always. Listen.